seconds. Right, bore da, a croeso I Mesur y Mynydd, ail diwrnod Mesur y Mynydd gyda'r rheithgor a'r tystion yn barod i'r cychwyn y sgwrs bore yma. Good morning and welcome to the second day of Measure the Mountain. We have our citizens jury ready to go and we have our first witness. So I'd like to introduce you to Katie, and Dot will be joining us in a minute, but Katie, I'm going to go through a few questions and you answer as much as little as you want, and then we'll take some questions from the jury later on. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great. Morning.
Good morning. Thank you. So, Katie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please, and about the supporting and caring you do for your son?
Yeah, of course. I live in Rhondda and Taff, so I live just down the road from the university here. My son is 12 years old, Freddie, and he goes to a special school. We're lucky, the special school is just around the corner from our house in Pontypridd. He's been going to the special school now for 2.5 years. Previous to that, he was in a mainstream school in a supported unit for 2 or 3 years, and he started school life in mainstream. So we've gone through quite a journey in terms of education. Complex learning difficulties. Big milestone last week, he wrote his name for the first time, for example. He also has ADHD, which is very challenging to deal with. And just before he started at the special school, he started having fits. So he has also now been diagnosed with epilepsy. Daily life is a challenge with Freddie. I work full-time, although I'm currently on furlough, hence the excitement of taking part in this today. And I am married, but going separate presents its own challenges, of course, with a child with learning difficulties.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Diolch yn iawn. Is there anything you'd like to tell us and share with us, that anything in particular that makes life more complicated and difficult?
With the challenges Freddie faces, daily life is a constantly trying to think 5 steps ahead, which is difficult. It takes the sort of the spontaneity out of things, and you've got to be really careful what you say to Freddie, because if I said, for example, I was taking him to the cafe after school this afternoon, which I have, I need to take him to the cafe, else he'll be walking there on his own. Every morning, I know you've seen the that I recorded a few weeks ago during the summer holidays earlier, and very much to reiterate about that, life is a series of challenges every day. So transition points for us are particularly hard. So getting from one thing to another. So getting Freddie up in the morning, getting the breakfast, the medication in him, getting out the door, getting to school. And if he gets something into his head, which he did the other night when we walked the dog, and he had his scooter, he decided he wanted to go to his nanny's house. He just went to his nanny's house, didn't think twice about it. No risk factors involved at the age of 12, which other children would have at that point. Just crossed the main road on his scooter, panic station, search party, those kinds of things. So those kinds of things, you can't plan for, they happen. Unpredictability of possibly could have school today, I'd get a phone call, I'd have to leave in 5 minutes, anything. So it's that almost constantly being alert for things that could be happening, and that inability to relax as much as you want to, perhaps.
Thank you, Katie. I can see that Dot has joined in as well, so I'm going to ask, hello Dot, how are you? So it's lovely to see you, Dot. You need to switch your microphone on, which is the button on the screen in the middle in the shape of a microphone.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Fantastic, Dot. Croeso, welcome to the citizens jury and measuring the mountain. While we would it be possible for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself and about the support and care you provide?
Okay, I have 2 adult sons with learning disabilities. My youngest son has Down syndrome and muscular dystrophy disability, so his is physical and disability. I'm also chair of Anglesey is an Wales, and we have around 290 members on our in our membership. So we have a lot of learning disabilities. We have a lot of my son's has a lot of friends through that group, and I provide my sons both get direct payments, which that they get 32 hours together. So for the rest of the 7 days a week, I provide free care.
Okay, right, thank you. I'm going to ask you a second question now then, Dot, and then we'll bring Katie in for the last question, if that's okay. And then we'll have some questions from the jury, if that's okay with you. So the second question for you now, Dot, is there anything in particular that makes life more complicated and difficult for you?
Yes, and it's not my son's, and it's not my son's care. It's all the things that go around that, starting when they're born with health issues, you know, arguments that we have to have, other parents don't have to have, then going on to education, where I don't know how many appeals Mike had to have to go through mainstream school, ending up with 1 to stay in 6th form and then going on to college. It was constant. It's constant, and then after that, you know, just trying to get people to make the reasonable adjustments that need to be made around their life for their life to be like everybody else's, so that they've got the choices that everybody else have, that they can have the opportunities that everybody else has, without being a major. And everything is a major battle. Absolutely everything. So if that was, and if I wasn't aware that there's there's a lot of money provided by the Welsh government, but it doesn't go to the right place. There's a lot of consultation. We're involved constantly in consultation, but there's never any co-production. You know, it just doesn't happen. We're asked for, you know, time. And I find that our group of friends and the people that are working for Mencap whole as a moment at the moment are people that their friendships were when our children were younger. So the people that I know now, with 30-odd-year-old sons, that whole length of time. So they've become good friends. We're very good at supporting each other, and that's where we need to be putting more into the roots and at the bottom, where our children develop their friendships and we develop our friendships, so that we can all help each other.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dot. Katie, I'm going to go back to you now, just to ask the question: is there anything that, in particular, that makes life easier?
Definitely. Since Freddie started at the special school, we've given into the associated stigma that we felt about having a social worker. We fought against it for a number of years because I think there is a big stigma about having a social worker. And once Freddie started at the special school and I started speaking to the other mums, so like Dot was saying, other mums are a massive support. They're you know, you can't value them highly enough, because they know exactly what you're going through. They can tell just by looking at your face if you're having a bad day. So yeah, the special school, the fact that the social worker has opened up a whole range of opportunities and services for us. Have a really good, honest and open relationship with the social worker. We meet her regularly. And that, for me, the social worker, and everything that's brought has been the biggest turnaround for us as a family, and for support for Freddie to get what he needs at the right time.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. So Dot, I'm going to ask you the same question. Is there anything in particular that makes things easier?
Definitely the parent. the support I get from my son's friends, mums and dads, and we've got a lot of friends with learning disabilities. They support me and Mike quite often because they've often been through things before Michael have and they'll or Gary has, and they'll tell me how it was for them and how they felt about it, which helps me support my son with, you know, whatever we're doing at that time. But definitely support, and the support of Mencap is just always there. There's always a phone Mencap about anything, and it's always really useful because they've lots and lots of parents who have had whatever problem I've had. Somebody's had it before me, and somebody will have it, and it probably won't be a professional.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Well, the questions are starting to come in from the jury panel. So I'm going to, I've got one from Andy, and I'm looking around the screens to see if people are putting their hands up, or Cyril is put his hand up. Always depend on Cyril for a question. Thank you very much. But I'm going to start with Andy's to start off with, and Claire has asked a question, but I'm going to start with Andy's, who are question to the both of you. To what extent do you feel you're involved or included with the planning of input of care to your family?
Do you want to go first, Dot?
Yeah, okay. Very little, really. We're quite lucky on Anglesey because we tend to know the social workers and the nurses, etc. But most decisions are made well before we're consulted.
Okay, thank you. Katie?
I would say the opposite, to be honest, from our point of view. My son goes to an extremely supportive special school, Ysgol in Pontypridd, and without the support of the school, the social worker, other mums and family as well, I don't think we could, you know, cope as well as we do. It's still a struggle daily. The school actually has a family centre, and they look to put on additional support for families. And there are days when I take Freddie into school and somebody will notice that I've been crying, or that I look upset, or that I'm having a bad day, basically. And they might just say, you know, do you want to have a chat? And then they'll see what they can do. They've got a link directly with the social worker, with the epilepsy nurse. The epilepsy nurse goes into the school to sessions. There's a lot of linkage. And I don't know whether that's a South Wales thing or whether it's just local to Rhondda and Taff. I don't know what it is. But for us, things are working together well. And we're getting, you know, the support in terms of the PA, the additional support in the holidays for things like play schemes. You know, all of that has been free. We've had play scheme right throughout the school holidays, which even if it was only for 2 hours, it's something additional for Freddie to challenge him, to help him to socialise with his friends, for me to have a little break. And the PA works extremely well. So all of those services, it's the school and it's the social worker, and it's the working together. It's the collaboration that works really, really well for us.
Go on, Dot, yes?
I slightly misunderstood that. I thought you meant, you know, forward planning for things like now, and I'm at a completely different stage because my boys, I've got one that's 40 odd and one that's 32, so, and I'm 70 odd. So I'm now thinking about what will happen when I'm not here, when I'm not here, and I don't get a lot of discussion about that. You know, apart from Mencap, who you go to and say what's out there, we don't get included in the forward planning for the next stage. After school is a whole different ball game to in school. You know, in school you've got loads of support. You have got the school. You have got your team. When they go into care, you're on your own.
Yeah. Okay.
I have to say that's something that I'm really scared about. Is as Freddie gets older, not only is he getting stronger to have to, you know, to deal with his tantrums and his meltdowns, but also where will he end up? And that's, people have started to ask me that recently. Well, where will Freddie go after he's finished school?
Exactly.
whether that's supported accommodation, whether he's expected, you know, we just don't know. And that is really scary, because you see other children, as I said earlier, Freddie started in mainstream. We didn't know there was an issue until he was, what, 5 or 6? And he didn't start developing as other children did. So for us, we've not got the life, the family that we thought we had, you know, when we had a baby, and it's all sort of kind of happened, and we're just kind of winging it, really. That's how it feels a bit. Yeah,
that's difficult. That's difficult. So the questions are starting to pile up now, you'll be pleased to hear. So keep drinking the water and making yourselves comfortable. I've got Cyril, then Joe, then Tafsila, and then Claire. So Cyril, do you have a question? Microphone on. Put your microphone on and your camera off. Or phone Katie or Joseph. Okay, so while you work that out, I'm sorry, just because of time, I'm going to go on to Joe. Joe had a question. On Joe?
Hiya, hi Kate and hi Dot. My question's for Kate. I just wanted to know, did you have to fight to get Freddie into special school? Because I know that can be difficult, and I do wonder if sort of, you know, if children are in special schools earlier on, you might have had like more support, like you said, from fellow parents. And do you think that he would have been better off if he'd started life in a special school in the beginning?
Oh, I have no doubt that if he had, we would be in a different position now, yes. But we didn't have any concept of that being any problems at all. What happened with us is that it was picked up because Freddie wasn't progressing as he should have been in the first mainstream school he was in. The advisor that goes in and checks on the children in the schools and sees if there's any issues, what they call the professional title. She basically phoned me. They'd done an assessment of Freddie. She phoned me one morning when I was in work. It was a Monday morning, 9 o'clock, and she told me basically over the phone, Freddie's got complex learning difficulties. This is his ability, which was really low, and he basically needs to go to a special school. So I was given this information over the phone, at which point I had rather a large panic attack, because the control was just taken, like the rug had been pulled from underneath me. And at that point, then the next sort of step for Freddie would have been to go to a supported unit in a mainstream school, which we tried to keep him in the mainstream for as long as we could, because we felt, because it was just it was out of our comfort zone. We just didn't know what to do. So we went from mainstream to mainstream with supported unit, and that was extremely good, but he still wasn't progressing after a couple of years as it should have been. So it was kind of a steady thing for us. It was really scary when they said he needs to go to the special school earlier than you expected. And we went to visit, and we were both in tears. You know, they took us to the class that he would be in. We were in tears. It was just that accepting that this is his life now, and you know, it's not something that we took on board lightly. But it's without doubt the best thing for Freddie. He's in the best place. He's so supported and cared for, and the teachers, they have a passion for working with children with learning difficulties like Freddie. So yeah, it wasn't something that we had to fight for. It was something that we had to learn to accept, to be honest, and it was definitely following the advice of professionals.
Thank you. Lovely. Thanks, Joe and Katie. Cyril, we're going to try your question. Okay, Cyril, can I try now, Cyril? Go on, speak. Go on, speak, Cyril. No. Go on, Cyril. Go on. I can feel it come in. No. Right. While we work out with Cyril, can I ask, yes, Dot,
Sorry.
yeah, sorry.
The lady asking about the school thing then, because my older son had gone through special school, Mike has almost benefited by some of the things that went wrong during Gary's growing up, my older son growing up. So I fought very hard for Mike to go to mainstream school, and as I say, lots of appeals, lots of going back to the LEA, and the differences are when Mike has got many friends out in community that know that let on to him, that speak to him when he's out and about. My older son, who went to special school, hasn't any people in the real world, because he didn't know people in the real world, and that's just the difference, and that shows up in adulthood.
Thank you, Dot. And you okay with that then, Joe? Happy? Good. Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to go to Tafsila again. See if Tafsila has a question.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Katie and Dot. Thank you so much for telling us your stories this morning. I can relate to a lot of things that you've said. I wanted to ask Katie, you said that your relationship with your social worker is it sounded like quite a positive, balanced, trusted relationship. Do you think you were just, I mean, I suppose it's a question for both of you, like with Dot, have you also got that relationship, or again, as it keeps coming up, it seems like there's quite a postcode lottery of services and relationships? Because I find sometimes you're always kind of on the lookout for where the social worker's trying to trip you up, whether it's your own care or your children's care. How do you feel about the relationships you both have with that service?
Go on,
Let's
Dot.
go first, Dot.
Well, again, I think there's an obvious massive difference between having a child in school and having adults who want to be in the real world. And you're quite right about often being very cagey with professionals, because you're not sure where the information that you're giving quite freely, where that's going to be used. There's occasions when if a social worker says, oh, what does he do on a Tuesday? And if you say, oh, well, he goes to my mum, they'll say, oh, they don't need care. They don't got care, family cover it. You know, you become very cagey, and it's a whole different experience having a child in school to having an adult in the world.
Thank you, Dot. Diolch yn fawr. Katie?
For me, the thing that I wanted to say about the social worker is that we're on our second social worker now. Well, I'm on my second social worker because it's me that meets her. And the first one we had for about 6 months to a year, and the second one we had for probably 2 years. About 6 months ago, she told me that she was going to have to move on. She'd been told by her manager that she couldn't work with me anymore, and she had to work with a different caseload. I was really quite dismayed at that prospect of having to then start again in the situation and establish a new sort of rapport with a new social worker. So I fought against that, and I said, what can we do about this? Does this have to happen? And she said, let me go back and speak to my manager. And I said, I'll put something in writing if that would help. But I feel like we've got a productive working relationship in terms of support for Freddie, and we're getting everything we need at the moment. Why does that need to change? So I just wanted to highlight the fact that sometimes managers in local authorities, social services, might think, oh, it's a good idea to change somebody's caseload, but it's about relationships. It's about relationship building and support and ongoing support. And that trust as well, for me, is really important. I haven't encountered a lot of the sort of negative experiences that Dot has, but I have no doubt that I will in the future with Freddie. And I'm glad that Dot's highlighted that, actually, because I can sort of look out and be aware for that for the future. But yeah, for me, the fact that they just thought, oh, they could just chop and change the social worker, it wouldn't matter. well, it matters to me, matters to our family and to Freddie. So that was taken back, and she said, no, that's good news, Katie, I can still work with you. So that, fantastic. She's got links with the school, she's in the school all the time, so it just didn't make sense to me to change the social work. And I'm busy as well with work, and I thought, I really can't be bothered to make a new relationship with a social worker and spend time doing that. And I've got all these other appointments and things I need to do with Freddie and keep on top of.
Again, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Again, the thing is that if I couldn't count the number of workers and nurses that my sons have had, because it's that they're not good at their job. They may only be their social worker for 3 months and then move on, or leave the team or whatever. You can't always develop a good relationship with the professionals. The professionals who we've got some brilliant people on our team, nurses, the social workers. They're there to do their job, and that lots of them are not in any way. They do it, they go every morning to do it. But what happens is that the system takes over. They may only be there for 2 months, but I could not count the social workers and nurses that have had in adult care.
Thank you.
The other question I had, the Dot, on the direct payment side of things, did you feel that you had to fight to get them the direct payments? And listening to what you said, it doesn't seem like they get what they need. What restrictions do you think are put in that direct payments are not being able to be used in the way they should be?
Well, we use ours. My boy, it's the best thing for my boys is direct payment. Not everybody agrees, and there's a lot of things that I don't like about. I don't want to be an employer at 72, but I have to be for them to get what they need. That's what I have to do. I don't want to be an employer. I don't want to be engaging with HMRC. It's not what I want to do. I've never wanted to do it, but I have to do that for my sons to get to be able to go out when they want to go to employ a PA to do what they want to do, for them to make the decisions. That's the only way around. Daycare is not something that's ever been, going to a daycare has not ever been something that either they or I would want for them. So, they use their PA and they use it well. And it means that they can meet their friends. They can, if they want to go to a pub and meet their friends, their PA takes them, and that's what they do. I don't have to be involved in it. They arrange it. There's not enough money in direct payments, I don't think. But after saying that, we work our care out really well, and we've got a very good relationship with our direct payments officer, who would, he would change whatever he do for everybody to get what they wanted. That's good.
Can I just say something, Dot? I think you've made a really good point there, that as carers, parent carers, we're almost doing a part-time, if not sometimes it feels like a full-time job, as well as doing all the other things we're doing. And my situation, obviously, in a non-COVID times, working full-time. But yeah, you're right. All the paperwork that we have to do, and we have to be the employer and have the employer's liability insurance, and we have to faff about online and do the tax. And I've never done anything like that before. And we're kind of doing it, we're developing new skills that maybe we didn't even really wanted to develop. But it's things like that. And then managing all the medication, the appointments, in my case, school and different things like that. So it does, some weeks it feels like it's never ending, and it is a full-time job in itself sometimes.
Thank you both. I'm just going to, we've got about 25 minutes left, and we've got a number of people asking questions. So we've got Claire, Nina, Giles and Victoria in the pipeline with questions. Claire, do you want to, I've got something typed up, but do you want to try asking your question?
Hi, diolch yn fawr. I was going to ask two quick questions. One question is, do you have any help to process the tax? Sometimes there are organisations that can has it been lost? I can see Cyril now. Sometimes there are organisations that can manage the tax. Sometimes there are organisations that can manage the account for you, like the Rowan organisation. And my other question was, do you find it easy or difficult to get information, such as to understand the policies, to understand your rights? Do you find that you're given clear answers when you ask questions, or ambiguous answers, or incorrect, accurate answers, inaccurate answers? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Just hang on, Cyril, you're going to have to put yourself on mute for once there. Yeah, but please put yourself on mute for a second. I'll come back to you in a minute now, Cyril. So Claire's 2 questions were, do you have organisations to help you with the sort of processing of tax and finance and money and that kind of thing? And then do you have help from organisations to understand the policies, the rights, the information you need in order to make your lives easier and less difficult? I'll start with Dot with that one.
Yeah, we know about Rowan, and we've got in North Wales, the North Wales Advocacy Service also do a good, but because of it itself, and you've no idea the number of department places that you have to deal with, and the more you can cut out, the better. And I can say on at the moment, we've got the leader of our social services is a young man that's come up through starting off as a volunteer and running a play scheme, and the difference is now that he knows all the pitfalls that we have as parents, and I think the future is going to be quite he's going to be very useful in the future for adults with learning disabilities.
Fantastic, thank you very much, Dot. Katie?
I don't get any support with doing the tax at all. I've just had to sort of learn. And the trouble is, because you don't have to do it very often, it's like when you're doing things in work. You don't do it very often, you forget what you're doing. Oh no. And it's kind of, it's like you put off doing it, and then it's like literally doing it on the last day, that's the deadline day. I'm terrible at that. What was the second question? Sorry.
The second question was getting access to information that helps you understand all the policies that you have to wade through, your rights, all the information you need in order to make life easier and less difficult.
I would say that I get that through the school, and the school's very good at sort of breaking things down into easy language to understand. But also in my role as a parent governor at my son's special school, we're covering things like that anyway, so I'm in a sort of a different situation there as well, really. But I feel that everything is broken down. The school is very good, and they will put on sessions, for example, in the family centre about policies if we needed them, if we ask for things, or if we need some clarity, they would definitely provide that for us. Thank
you, Katie. Thank you very much. Nina has a question, and she's typed it in, so I'm going to ask it for you, if that's okay, Nina. So, it's really hard as a woman. I can only speak from my own experience to care for your family and children. But what about your own well-being? How are you being supported for you as a person? And do you have time out and support to do that? And I'll go to Dot for that one to start off with.
Again, I get great support from my family. I've got a very supportive family, and but my main support comes from Mencap and the parents that in Mencap, because if I have a bad day or my sons are having a bad day, they know right away. For example, 12 of us, and it fits the COVID rules. So we were out on a picnic yesterday, and we just all felt, out we went into a forest, and we together, and and daughters all get on really well, so they had a great time. We all offloaded, and I think that lockdown's been really, really hard for lots and lots of parents. It's been very difficult. It's been very difficult for our adults with, my friends with learning disabilities. But lots of them have coped much better than we thought. And what we realise is their friendships are massively important to them, because it's the one thing that for them is normal, having their friends.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dot. Katie?
Yeah, I try and make time for myself where I can. So, for example, this morning 7:30, I did my personal training over online. So I got that half an hour in, quick burst for myself, and that makes me feel more positive for the day ahead. As I was doing that, funnily enough, my husband was getting up upstairs and facing the onslaught from Freddie, really, as he tried to get his medication. And so it was quite nice that I didn't have that this morning. But things will be changing in the future. So yes, there will be changes in terms of who's got Freddie and that situation. But I've got a dog. We walk the dog a lot. I walk the dog on my own whenever I can. And I've made friends, particularly during lockdown. That might have been the highlight of my day quite a lot, just to take the dog out and get some fresh air and see the other people walking their dogs and have a chat and a natter and a bit of a laugh. It's quite nice to just be able to let off a bit of steam and get some fresh air. So for me, exercise is probably the key to it, I would say. But also, like, very similar to Dot, other parents, they're always there at the end of a WhatsApp group or a message. And we've arranged nights out and different things, sort of socially distanced. And that's great. So it's a bit of outdoors exercise and social time as well, in terms of friends.
Great. Thank you, Katie. Thanks for that. I've got a question now from Giles, and I'll read it out for you now. It's a question to you both. Do you think there should be a separation between children's and adult services so that your children have to be moved from one to the other? Or do you think it would be better to have a seamless support regardless of age? Dot.
Seamless support is something that we've been desperately trying for a very long time. There's always a transition team, but what we find again and again is to do an awful lot of consultation and very little co-production. And, as parents, we want to be involved, we want to know what's going to happen. We want to help make those plans. We don't want somebody just to scoot in and say, oh, what do you think about that? When they've already made their mind up anyway, and it's going to happen. We need a seamless service. It's got to be seamless. And we've got to try and educate our younger parents about what will face them in the future. And if you think about Kate and our difference in age, if Kate is already having sleepless nights about what will happen to her son's care when she's... Think about how you feel at 70 when you lie in bed thinking, am I going to wake up in the morning and know that everything's going to be okay? It's difficult. It is difficult. We need a seamless service, and it's the only way to go. And one of the ways to do that is to engage parents younger. Our group of adults at the moment, our group of adults parent group in Mencap, are parents who were involved in what used to be the old Wales strategy. We met under those circumstances. And we've been friends for over 30 years, and there isn't a difficulty that any one of them can face that somebody doesn't know about. It needs to be seen.
Yeah, it needs to be seamless. Okay, thank you, Dot. Katie.
I don't feel that I'm well placed to answer this because I haven't got to that point yet. So the next few years will be the transition for Freddie, and I feel that the school will be preparing him very well for that. In terms of the social services side, I don't know how that will work. But the school certainly, Freddie will be doing things like the Duke of Edinburgh, learning independent skills and things like that. So that I can only answer from a school perspective at the moment, because it's a bit of an unknown entity for me, the social services side. But I would hope, like Dot was saying, that it would be seamless, and that it wouldn't feel any different. You wouldn't feel like you've got to tick one box there and another box there when he becomes an adult. So you would want it to be as straightforward and easy for the family and the care user as possible.
So, and what your answer there links really to a question from Victoria. Dot, did you have something to come back to there?
Just that often, the other sort of care our sons and daughters as adults get compared to are the elderly, which really, really makes me really cross. It's one of my, because my son at 30 should not be lumped into elderly. He's not had the chance to save and to provide things for himself as I have at 70, you know, and his learning disability was not a lifestyle choice. I've made lifestyle choices all my life. Was I going to be ready to retire? Did I have money? Did I have a pension? He's not able to do all that things, and constantly their care gets lumped. And I'm saying that as a 72-year-old with the elderly, and I don't want it to. They should be autonomous. They should be a completely different, you know, people should look at them completely differently, because they're young people wanting to do young things, and they don't want to be lumped into elderly care. But we get told, especially if there's something to be paid for, we're constantly told, oh, well, the elderly have to pay for that. Well, you know what? The elderly knew they were going to be elderly. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point, Dot. That links to Victoria's question, really, about conversations that you have with people about the children and planning. And is that forward planning considered over the next year, or do people really make plans for the future when they're talking with you that are, you know, 5, 10, or even more years ahead? Sorry, Katie, sorry.
I wouldn't say that we've talked that far ahead. No, not in any situation that I've been in. It's very much sort of 6 months to a year. What is the care plan that we need for Freddie's to be set in place? Is what you currently have at the moment adequate, Katie? Do you feel that Freddie needs anything else? And those are the kinds of conversations. And I feel very much involved in conversations both with the social worker and with the school in terms of his annual review. Very much part and parcel of the process. They want to hear from a family perspective how he's doing at home. What are the things that make him happy? What does he enjoy? What does he enjoy? So yeah, I don't think I can say much more about that, really.
So it's short term rather than longer term.
Yeah, short term,
yeah,
definitely.
Okay. Yeah, and Dot?
Yeah, I'm afraid it's got to be longer term for us. And most of the parents I want to know what's going to happen in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, and the way we do that mostly is through Mencap, because it's a national charity. They'll know where the best practices are, and I can say to them, who's running good housing, who's running good, you know, adult services, and they will know because they've got access to the whole of England, Wales, Scotland. Well, perhaps Scotland's a different association, but you know, Royal Mencap will feed in, and so we'll know where the best practice is, and that's where we should, you know, that's where we need to go and have a look at, bring it back to where we are. Try and introduce our team, our social workers and social services to that. And Mencap is my go-to, and the parents I know go-to place for that.
Thank you, Dot. I'm going to try again to get a question from Cyril.
Right, it's not a question; it's an observation. For Katie. Right, a question for Katie. What medication is you on?
What medication?
Yeah.
Freddie's on Equizim for the ADHD. So he takes 20 milligram capsule in the morning. Pardon?
He's a CBD.
Right.
Oh, I haven't tried that.
Cyril? Cyril?
Yeah. Yes.
We've been waiting all morning for a question. Can we have a question rather than advice for Katie and Dot? A question would be fantastic.
Right. What medication is your son on?
He's on Equizim. He's on 20 milligrams morning, 10 milligrams in the evening, which is a capsule which we break up and we put into a raspberry.
Yeah.
And he's also on Epilim for his epilepsy, which is 3 sachets about that big in the morning, which we stir into a little yogurt. Yeah. And he's in 1 sachet at night. But he also has medication, melatonin, which is supposed to help him sleep. There's not really very much that does help him sleep, to be honest. It's a bit of an ongoing battle at the moment. He's up far later than he should be, and his motor's constantly running. That's it.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Cyril, for that question. I'm going to move on. We've got other people asking questions now. So Claire has come back with a question going back to the issue of information and do you feel that the information that you're given is precise and accurate Is it hard or easy to understand and learn about policy and rights? Katie, sorry.
I think it's something that you need to spend a bit of time on, and it's one of those other things that if you haven't got the time to do it, you kind of depending on other people to break it down for you and to know where to go to. If I had a problem, my first port of call would be to text my social worker, I've got to be honest, or to speak to the school. And I feel that I could do either of those really easily. I could phone the school, I could speak to somebody at the school gate, even the head teacher I know quite well from being a governor. So yeah, that's what I would do.
So, okay, so sort of relationships, with the trust in the relationships within the different settings to help answer the information. Great. Dot.
Again, if there was something that I wasn't fully understanding, I would probably ask, one of the parents if they'd had the same problem or if they'd read the same article, and then if all else fails, you just ring the Mencap hotline.
Thank you. I'm just going to read Tafsila's question, which is, what do you think would need to change? I suppose this is more for you, Dot. What needs to change for people moving up from school into adulthood?
It's really difficult because it's hard. You don't want to worry parents of younger children, especially younger parents in school. But quite honestly, all the things I really, really worried about when my son was in school, their education, I actually have no, don't fit anywhere into the world that they go into then as an adult. Whatever qualifications will have no bearing on his life now. The best thing that came out of Michael's going to school was his friends and friendships, which hasn't been the same for my older son. He went to special school, so he was bussed in every day, brought home by taxi in the evening, never breaks at night, never went out to the pub with his friends. And his friends are now, all adults, and he has got them now, but basically through being, because we have a really good Mencap on the island, and because they're all good friends and lots of them went to school together, but don't have the same issues as the children as when they're adults. And what would help would be put in place for their social activities, because when they're in school and they have the school disco and they have the whatever club they have going on and things like that, it disappears when they leave school. So what I discovered when my sons left school was you suddenly realize that they're home and they're doing nothing, and you think, oh, why is that? And they don't get invited for sleepovers, they don't get invited to people's houses, they don't get invited to parties. So you have to put all that in place yourself. Those are things that you have to put in place. You have to develop their friendships, and you have to give them friends to to call on, and make sure that they keep those contacts up.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Victoria asks specifically about the professionals involved with your sons, to both of you. Have they had specific training in neurodiversity, epilepsy, and behavioural support? Katie.
I would say neurodiversity, yes. I don't know about epilepsy. I don't know what the training's covered. I would imagine she's got quite a firm understanding of it, but I don't know. It's not something. I think you just expect them to know about everything, really, but they probably don't. And if there was a specific issue or query I had, that they would be able to answer it. And because most of the contact is by text, it would give them time to find out about things. But yeah, there's something I want to say after this question, if we have time, about the role of the PA, linking to what was mentioned earlier. So can we come back to that after?
Yeah, sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah. So, Dot.
We have got a very, very good, we've got access to a very good team of nurses who are trained in learning disability on the island. So yeah, I think that probably they have all got whatever it takes, and it certainly would be where I would go if I had something worrying about their health, any of their health issues. and I'm pretty, we have got a really good team of nurses with learning disabilities.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dot. We've got a few minutes left. I've got one more question from Nina. So I just wonder, Katie, do you want to make your point now or afterwards?
Yeah, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
All I wanted to say was somebody was having an issue with a PA not turning up, and there being difficulties there. And I know how upsetting that would be. My son would be upset if he couldn't go out for an outing with his PA. But for me, I think people go into the role of PA and they see it as something it's quite easy, just turn up, just taking them to going out and about with them. But actually, it's a really massive responsibility. You've got to have someone who's got that passion for supporting people and really wants to do it. And I've seen some really good PAs, and I've been out and about. And I think once you access a PA, you notice other people working as PAs with whereas you might never have noticed them before. But for me, it's somebody wanting to do that role. And I've got a really good PA at the moment who takes Freddie during the holidays and at weekends. And it's somebody I know personally. She's a friend of mine. She works in a special school as a teaching assistant, but she also knows Freddie really well. And she gets him. She knows what's going to trigger him. She's been there when he's had a fit. So it's not a role that people should just be given. It's something that I think there needs to be a firmer selection process for PAs, and it's a great job to give somebody that independence and that social side to their life. Where, like Dot was saying, if somebody's not getting out a lot when they're a little bit older, that's a lifeline. That PA is a lifeline. So I just don't think we should be making do with PAs who don't have the right competencies and that passion to work with people who have learning difficulties and disabilities.
Yeah, I second that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really, really important. PAs are a massive influence on our sons and daughters, and they don't get enough praise, and they certainly don't get enough money. They get a lot more money for stacking shelves in Tesco's and no responsibilities, and it is a responsible job. And it, often they go in it because they're caring, but they leave because they're worn out, and they don't get the right amount of money. And, which goes for all carers. I'm a carer over 70, so people that care over 60 don't even get the carers allowance. We weren't even considered for the bonus payment that the paid carers got. So we don't see carers in the right way. We don't pay them enough. Don't pay PAs enough. We need better training.
Yeah, I pay my PA more.
Yeah,
to make sure that she'll do it. Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
So fantastic. Got our last question, because there have just been so many questions in this session, and I know the jurors have really enjoyed having this conversation with you. It's from Nina, and it's to both of you, Katie and Dot. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you have changed about your journey with care up to this point? And how would they pave a better way for others to follow in their footsteps? Katie.
Difficult. I think, although the social workers have been very good, I think when you meet them for the first time, they try to establish what your needs are. I didn't understand what direct payments were. Direct payments, I think to the typical person on the street, say what direct payments, they wouldn't have a clue. So direct payment to access basically independence of your child, that should be brought into the conversation straight away, because it wasn't there straight away for me. So for me, everything needs to be sort of upfront. Rather, it feels sometimes like they have these little bits that they keep back, and it's kind of, they feed you little bits here and there. And then it's when you say the right question, or you have a bit of a bad day, they suddenly say, "Oh, you could have a PA." So it needs to be rather, I suppose, because it's the financial side of things, isn't it? And they're trying not to just offer everything. But as a family, you need to get the right support there from the offset, rather than sort of 6 months down the line. So yeah, and it is about unpicking everything. Everything's so complicated and challenging. The forms you have to fill in, disability living allowance, it's the ongoing, it's all of that. So the support needs to be there right from the upfront, but consistent as well in terms of the social worker.
Thank you, Katie. And yourself, Dot, if you had a magic wand?
I would stop myself panicking when they were younger about things that I thought was massively important. I thought education was massively important, and quite honestly, it's sort of socialization was the best thing, you know, and them having friends in the community, roots in the community, people that they can wave to, people that they can chat to, people that they see every day. And the PAs are really important. And the thing about direct payment is, it's like I said, because I have got a 47-year-old and a 30-year-old, unfortunately, my 47-year-old has been the learning curve to get it right for both of them, hopefully. And the learning curve with direct payments was, it's brilliant. And I was so impressed with direct payments, except it was very, very isolating. And often, instead of being with a group of friends, he might be one-to-one with a woman of my age, or, you know, and not wanting to be there. You know, she would be doing a very good job, but he at 47 didn't want to be there, sat with a, you know, having a cup of tea with a woman. He wanted to be somewhere with his. So we've discovered a way to do direct payments for us. We're trying on the island is to sort of co-opt them so that my son can say, I want to go out with my mates today, and we want a PA to take us, so that one PA could take 3 or 4 people. And they could do what they want to do, and the PA just sits back and lets them do it. You know, I don't want him to have to spend the day with a woman of my age, or, you know, an older person. I want him to be with his friends, and that's what we're trying to do with our, and that's how we're working with direct payments at the moment, is to get them to be able not to just take one person one-to-one, sit across the table, have a little chat, have a cup of tea. He wants to go with his friends, and my boys go out with their mates. They've been on holidays with their friends and a PA. They've done what they've wanted to do, made their own decision and carried it out.
Fantastic. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Katie. Thank you for both of you and to the jurors for a fascinating discussion. We've gone over a little bit, but I thought it was worth getting the questions in, so thank you. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi gyd. Thank you to the jurors for taking part. And that is the end of the morning session. Dyna diwedd our sesiwn o bore yn Mesur y Mynydd, the end of the morning session for Measure the Mountain. And thank you very much.